What to look out for when you're taking your application or your website global. You've built an amazing app, you take it to production, and it actually takes off. Now what? I'm Robin Martijn. I'm a lead quality and innovation at BitFactory. We're a web agency based in Rotterdam. We build websites and applications for big and small companies. I'll show you a few examples at the end of names, not the websites. I only got 30 minutes. I live and work in Rotterdam, and I'm interested in languages and cultures abroad. I travel a lot, and in my day-to-day work, that is a big part of what we do. Before I start, I want to introduce two terms to you that are important to know the difference between, which I won't use in the rest of this talk, because they are difficult to pronounce when you're on the stage, and because they're not important to the rest of this talk. I'm going to give you concrete examples of things that can go wrong and things you might not know in advance. The first one, the first term that I want to introduce you to is internationalization, which is the process of designing a software application so that it can be adapted to various languages and regions without engineering changes. So this is the work you do before you start localization. And localization is the process of adapting the internationalized software that you built for a specific region or language by translating text and adding local specific components. I used the wrong color, but the source for both terms is Wikipedia, so I do not stand contesting that. Good. I will not be using those terms anymore, but it's important to know the difference if you're going to work with this. Otherwise, that might be somewhat embarrassing if the other party you're talking to actually knows what they're talking about. Been there, done that. The first one, date formats. Which date is this? There's no way to know. There are three formats that are primarily used, which are these three. There is date, month, year, the right one. There's month, date, year, the American one. And there's the actually right one, year, month, date, which is the one that we agreed to use internationally. That's the ISO standard, the one that isn't used enough, because the Americans still decide what we do, which we'll see later. But the right one is this one. This is the one that you should be using, because this is the only one that can't be confusing. There does not exist a version year, day, month. There's not a single region in the world that has ever used that. There's one exception. The Uyghurs have used it. They're not really allowed to do that anymore now. So back to the format we had. If we use it like this, we have a format that we can actually work with. However, this is still not a format that you can use internationally. This might seem logical to you, because most of you are from around here. Who's from the Netherlands? I might as well give this talk in Dutch. Then this might seem familiar. But all these variations make sense to someone. So there's the format that you're using. You have to take into consideration the order, year, month, date, day, or day, month, year, or the wrong one. And there's the way you're actually formatting it, are using slashes, dashes, dots, commas, whatever, spaces. Most, if not all, decent programming languages and frameworks actually have easy ways to deal with this. Who's here for a PHP conference? It's a stack agnostic talk, so it doesn't matter. Most of you are. Here's a PHP example. PHP has date formatters that you can use for this. You give it the region and the language and the way you want to format this, and it automatically handles this for you. So this argument is the date format. I need a short version. This is my time format, which is also an option. We are not using a time stamp here, but you might want to do that. And there you go. I'll show you the result after this. But for the people that don't use PHP for whatever reason, you can also do this in JavaScript, for example. JavaScript also has the option to pass an options object as a second argument to do what we did in PHP. and the result looks like this. So in Germany, the slashes are not that common as you might expect. They use the dots as their primary preference. Also note how we immediately spot the wrong one in here. It even handles those cases for you. So there's no reason to ever do this the wrong way. And I don't mean the American way, I actually mean the wrong way. Your programming language or framework should be able to handle that for you. So doing this wrong is always your fault automatically. Second thing that goes wrong is currency usage. So what we tend to do, or what I see happening, is we have the euro sign, we put the amount after it, and voila, we're done. And we're smart enough to format that number, so we only take two numbers after the comma. We forget that there's still rounding errors there, but okay, that's okay. And you get this. And once you start going abroad, you realize I also need to take into consideration that I might have dollars in the future. So you do that. This looks great. Good job. But what's this? What's the difference between the second and the third one? Yell? Anyone? Yell? Perfect. Could have also been the Australian dollars, for example, but most of the times if someone's mixing them up, it's the Canadian dollars. And this can actually get you in trouble if you don't specify this clearly enough. Like how it happened to Airbnb, who was fined to pay up to 30 million, 50 million to one party, 15 million to another, whatever. The most frustrating thing about this headline is, of course, that I still have no bloody clue how much they're paying. This is an article from The Guardian. They use pounds in the country where The Guardian is produced, so that doesn't help me either. I've got no clue, honestly. I looked into the article. I don't know how much they're paying. I'm presuming Australian dollars, because it was an Australian court. I don't know. Okay, so you realize I need to replace this sign with the actual valuta sign. There we go. No, we still have the same issue like we had with the date formats. This is euros. Imagine that we're only using euros now. And this is also euros. 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 They're all right. What's the difference? Sorry? They have different separators and stuff, yes. They are all in different regions. So yes, the Germans would expect you to put the euro sign after your amount, and the Japanese don't separate their thousands and whatever. Everyone has their own preferences. There's no way for you to start programming against this. You're not gonna get this right. However, you don't need to, because every decent programming language and every decent framework can handle this for you. Waiting for the photo, yeah. In PHP, for example, there's a number formatter available which handles internationalization. So I can give you the current language, which also takes the region, as you will see. Tell it that I'm formatting currencies, and voila, there we go. It's this easy. There's no reason to do this wrong, never. Also, we spot the wrong one immediately. The only one using commas here, which is the way that you are actually programming, even though you don't use this in day-to-day life. Someone uses this in day-to-day life, that's fine. Okay, third thing. This is one that most people simply don't know about. So the previous ones, date formats, currency formats, you know. You might not consider them when you're building software, and that's fine. But who knows what grammatical numbers are? Who knows what I'm going to talk about, approximately? No one. Who speaks more than 2 languages? More than 3? A little bit. Hola. Grammatical numbers can best be explained this way. So this is an apple. Thank you, 1 apple. This is 2 apples. There we go. This is 3 apples. There's a pattern here. The pattern is easy. It's the number And an apple, and if it's plural, we put an S after it. This is how we use singular and plural in English. This is how we expect nouns to work. I'm going to give you a diagram for Arabic, because I was unable to put this in a simple image. And believe me, I tried. Sorry, this hurts me more than it hurts you. This is how they handle this in Arabic. So there's different cases for 3 to 10. 11 and 12 have exceptions as well. So see how 3 to 10 is plural, but then at 11 and 12 we're singular again. And for some reason the number changes genders, that's a thing in Arabic, after 13. Once again, no way of programming against this. So the point is that you can't standardize your pattern. You can't say, I've got a word for singular, I've got a word for plural, and I'm just going to say, if count is more than 1, I'm going to use the plural form, which is what most of us do, to be honest, or at least what I see in production. You can't do that, and this is one of the reasons why. This is not the only exception, even though Arabic is a language that's big enough to take into consideration. We have singular versus plural, which is what you guys know. This is what we use in English, for example, with the apples. We also have singulative versus collective, so a separate word for the plural form that's still singular. Sounds weird, but most of you speak Dutch, so you know what snoep is, candy, which is a collective form. We still have residues of that. There's also the dual form, so we have 1 apple, then there's a special form for 2 apples, and then there's plural, which also sounds like they do it very far away. But in English we have words like both, either, neither, which come from the period of time we actually did use dual systems. We have that in Dutch as well, of course. Trial is an easy one that is the same thing as the dual system. Isn't used in English and never was, as per my understanding. There's also quadral and quintal, which you might guess by now. These you don't have to take into consideration because they're only used on small island states that, last time I checked, don't have internet connection, so take your gambles. But they are used in sign language. In sign language, they still have exceptions for quadral and quintal numbers. And there is Pocal, which isn't 6, if you think I was just making a list of numbers. This is a few which we use in English. Some languages use that by default. So Arabic, for example, has an exception for 3 to 10. You can see that as a Pocal system. And then there's a few obscure ones that I don't know how to summarize. The point is, you can't guess how the plurals are going to look, or how the grammar is going to look anyways. So what you do is you give the translators strings like this. For example, this is a Laravel example, but if you use another framework, be my guest, I'll show you a system that works in every language after this. But this way, the translator can simply determine themselves which exceptions there are. So if there's an exception for 3 apples, they can do that in this system. They can simply translate this whole string. I have to admit, it isn't easy for translators. Might be too technical for some, but it's a way. Using this would then be something like this. Okay, I screwed up this slide, so this is going to take a while. Forgive me. This is ICU message format, which is a format that is usable in every language because it's simply a standard. And ICU message format actually allows you to use numbers for translations, as you can see, but it also allows you to use selections, so you can make exceptions for genders, for example. And I'm not only talking about the gender of the people you're talking about, so he, she, but you could also use this for genders of objects, for example. I'm almost through the slide, yeah. ICU message format, interesting one if your language or framework doesn't have a built-in way of doing this. Now I want to do a quick quiz with you. We're in the middle of the presentation. I'm going to give you some emojis, and you're going to tell me what they mean. What's this? Okay. Now guess what it can also mean. Perfect. Stick it up yours, pal. This is the emoji that they use in the Middle East. So when the Americans went to Iraq, the soldiers were greeted with a friendly thumbs up. This is what the Iraqis meant when they did that. This is also what it means in several parts of Turkey, for example, which caused a serious outrage when Facebook launched the like icon. Yeah. What does this one mean? What can it also mean? And what does it mean for several cultures? Making love. Still clapping, but it's different clapping. Thank you. Okay, these are somewhat funny to misinterpret. This one isn't. So this one might be a little bit cheeky or look at me. In China, indeed, it means death. Not something you want to put in your interface as a default emoji. Last one, then I'm going to leave you alone. This one is in Dutch somewhat the same for a lot of people. This is distrusting someone. This is not a friendly emoji in a lot of regions. Okay, so emojis are not always a safe way of getting around translating your text. Emojis need to be translatable as well. That's my point here. Make your emojis translatable. Fifth, different word orders. Welcome to Dutch PHP conference. If I were to translate this, some people, and I used to be one of them a few years ago, would do this. I have a translatable string, welcome to, and I put the name of the conference after it. And this way, I can use this text for any conference. Great. So let's translate this. The same sentence to Hindi. It's at the beginning of the sentence. I can't translate this right now. I automatically have a problem. You also have this problem, of course, with tables, for example, where you're putting words in a specific order. You get the same issues. There's an easy way to fix this, a really easy way, which is using placeholders in your text. So you could, in PHP, use this. You could also just use, well, whatever you like, country name with dashes around it or whatever, and replace that later. But use placeholders so the translators can change the order of your words. So now a translator would make it look like this, which works. However, this still hurts. Be aware. It could be that you're using multiple strings that you're putting in your text, and you still want to make sure that someone can change the order. Now I have the issue that if the first one is the conference name and the second one is the name of the person in question, that a translator might now want to put the words in a different order, causing your whole sentence to be mixed up. An easy way in PHP to fix this is to make clear what the order is. You can actually do this, and you could still use placeholders if that makes more sense in your situation, but you can also give it a fixed order, and this way you can even replace those strings. So someone doesn't have to translate it twice. You can replace the same interpolation strings. Quick question. This is from 2003, when WordPress was just launched, or 2004, I don't know. The first language that WordPress was translated in was Japanese. And this was the string that was translated, or sort of. I don't speak Japanese, and I'm guessing you don't either. What's wrong? It's PHP, WordPress PHP. What's wrong with this string? Why did this cause whole WordPress to break, other than it's WordPress? We work in WordPress. I just showed you. WordPress needs the percentage sign. So you need to escape that one. Okay, then different word lengths. This is more something for front-end developers than for the PHP developers. Although it's the PHP developers making the mistake more often. Words do not have a set length, never. So if you have a mobile menu, this menu makes sense. But if you were to translate this menu to Portuguese, this is what your menu looks like. So you can't expect words to have a fixed length, never. one way is to make sure the interface changes with you. That's a way. Another way is to, for example, use icons, because as we know, icons are clear to everybody. This is not only the case in interfaces, but this also is the case for example, your meta descriptions, to name something. This text fits within the limit that Google sets for meta descriptions, 160 characters, approximately, I gotta admit, but still. 159 characters. Don't count them, it's 157. I counted the quotes, you get it. If you translate this text to German, you've got an issue. Do realize what happens when people are translating. It's perfectly expectable that your text size is double in size, so take that into consideration. Next up, sorting differences. This is a German alphabet. Looks right? They've got umlauts, and the letters with the umlauts are next to the letters without the umlauts. Makes perfect sense. This is the Swedish alphabet. The Swedish, on purpose, put the letters with accents after the Z. So if someone were to look into your list to look for someone with a certain name or a country with a certain name, they would look after the Z, and if they can find it, well, Swedish people use English websites as well, so they might know what's going on. But there's a good chance that regular users simply think that something's wrong, or the user doesn't exist, or the country doesn't exist, or whatever. People in different languages use different sorting orders. So this is a list of names in German, and this is the same list in Swedish. Nothing changed except for the order, because now the accents are at the end of the list. Of course, any decent programming language or framework has something built in. When I say every decent language or framework, I actually only mean PHP. I've got no clue about the other ones. But PHP got a built-in. They've got a collator, which you can use to sort. So if you're using the sort function, you might as well use one that actually is localized. This is all you need to do, and this sorts it automatically. So if your current language would be Swedish, there you go. You've got the list sorted in Swedish. Last, names. Everything you're seeing after this slide, I have stolen. I'll attribute the source at the end of the slides. So if you think I've already seen this meme, you have. People have exactly one canonical full name. Not true. Is there anyone here who has multiple names? One? Very cool. But you have at least one name that you go by. You never use two at the same time. Also not true. For you, perhaps? For most people. For a lot of people, not true. They use names in different contexts. So to their friends, they would use a different name than to their government, for example. Completely expectable. People's names don't change. Also, you get it, everything's false on these slides. Only on these slides, the other 60 were perfectly fine. People's names do change. And people's names are not case sensitive. But they're also not case insensitive. Depends. Sorry?
In Portuguese, are people's names plural?
Cool. I believe you. Portuguese names are plural. There you go. Thanks. And people's name can contain numbers. And people can have the same first and last name. Or no last names. Happens as well. At least people have a name when they're born. You get it? That's not true. At least people have names. By definition, also not true if the previous one wasn't true. There's a whole list by Patrick McKenzie, or any of his other names, apparently, about things that programmers believe about names. If you gotta take away one thing, it's that you can't simply put names in a first name and last name column. Please don't do that. People don't fit in those two boxes. That's all. Thank you. If I don't have any books to promote. I don't sell courses, whatever. But if you live in the Netherlands and you're looking for something cool, come work with me. Hit me up later. That's it. Thank you very much.
we got time for questions, if there are any. Always the other side.
Hello, thank you for the talk. My question is about how to define the actual language of the user, because IP address can say something, browser headers can say different thing. So how to do it correctly?
Ask the user. Just ask the user which language they want to use. You can guess, of course, and if you are going to guess, I prefer you guess based on their browser preferences and not based on their region, because that doesn't say anything. As most people know by now, we travel a lot, and me being in Italy doesn't mean I speak Italian. But my browser being in English means that I at least understand English. So if you have to guess something, pick the browser preference, because that's something they can influence, and always give them an option to change it, as long as you support that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another applause.